She tried towing my truck from a dirt road. She didn't know it was a federal surveillance unit. You ever watch someone make a mistake so bold, so colossally stupid, that time just slows down around them, like the universe itself takes a breath, leans back, and says, "Oh no." She didn't. Yeah, that was the moment I saw Karen hook my truck to a tow cable right in front of a live surveillance van, broadcasting to a federal command center. And here's the kicker: she thought she was protecting the HOA's rural aesthetic. Let me tell you something that still makes my blood boil just thinking about it. It started with a dirt road, a borrowed truck, and a woman named Karen who thought laminated paper and a clipboard gave her the power of the Supreme Court. See, I'd only been in Blackberry Hollow about 6 months when it happened. I wasn't planning on making enemies. I came for peace and ended up stumbling right into a self-declared HOA war zone. And Karen, she declared herself general. After a decade in cybercrime enforcement with the feds, I was done. I'd burned out hard. The long hours, the data breaches, the endless red tape. I needed quiet. So I cashed out what I'd saved and bought a fixer-upper tucked deep in the Ozarks, just off an old dirt trail where GPS barely worked. I wanted solitude, trout streams, coffee on a creaky porch with fog still sitting low in the holler. And yeah, maybe finally write that book about crypto fraud I'd been outlining for years. The nearest neighbor was half a mile up, a retired Marine named Willis, who smoked cigars and fed raccoons by hand. The second nearest was Karen, except she didn't introduce herself as Karen. No, she introduced herself as Community Oversight Chair of Blackberry Hollow Properties, whatever the hell that meant. I should have known something was off the minute she said, "We don't really allow non-native plants or federal signage around here. It disrupts the visual integrity of our settlement." I blinked. "Lady, this is the woods." She didn't laugh, just handed me a packet with rules, 10 pages of them printed in Comic Sans and stapled crooked. I didn't see her again for a few weeks. I figured that was it. Then one afternoon, I drove out in a beige box truck. It wasn't mine, belonged to the Bureau. I'd been doing contract surveillance work on the side. Nothing glamorous, just securing a signal repeater box tucked inside a converted van. Parked it right off the dirt road near my property so it could pick up satellite pings. It was clearly marked U.S. GovT property. Do not move on 3 sides. Apparently, to Karen, that meant free to tow. I came back the next morning, coffee in hand, and there she was standing next to it, waving down a tow truck like she was hailing a cab in Manhattan. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, setting my coffee down on the bumper. Karen didn't flinch. "Removing unauthorized vehicles from community access zones. That's federal property," I said. "And that zone, that's not part of your HOA. It's county-owned." Karen pulled out her laminated badge, the one that said Blackberry Hollow Beautification Officer, and flashed it like she was FBI. "You don't have the right to obstruct community thoroughfares," she barked. "You can take that up with our legal committee." "There is no legal committee," I snapped. "You're a lady with a clipboard and delusions of grandeur." By then, the tow guy was looking nervous. He walked up, muttering, "Ma'am, I don't think we can touch government vehicles." "I might need to call dispatch," Karen huffed, marching to the front of the truck. And I swear on my mama's sweet tea, she started yanking at the latch like she could pop the hood open. That's when it happened. A soft bzzzt as her metal ring clipped an exposed wire. And suddenly the box truck's alarm blared, a deafening klaxon that wasn't just local. It was a distress beacon. That thing didn't just alert me, it pinged Quantico. I didn't have to call anyone. 15 minutes later, a black SUV with no tags pulled up fast, crunching gravel as it braked. Out stepped 2 plainclothes agents, ones I recognized. One of them, Jenkins, used to sit across from me in the DC office. He nodded to me. "Didn't expect your report to come via distress ping." I shrugged. "Didn't expect Karen here to try and jack a federal relay." Karen paled. "This is all a misunderstanding," she stammered. "I thought it was abandoned." Jenkins opened the rear of the unit and checked the hardware. "Looks like she damaged the uplink." "That's a felony," she gasped. "You can't be serious." This is all just a big mix-up. But Jenkins wasn't looking at her anymore. He was staring at the laminated HOA manual she'd dropped, eyes narrowing. "This fake HOA stuff," he asked. "You know that's impersonating a regulatory body." "Right. That's wire fraud if you've ever collected dues under it." Karen didn't answer. She looked like she was about to throw up. The unit was fried. Took out one of the two backup batteries. Estimated $12,000 in damages. Karen, red-faced, screamed that I had set her up, called me a deep state puppet, and when Jenkins asked her for ID, she refused. That's when he cuffed her. Not arrested, detained. They let her stew in the back seat of that SUV while they walked the property line with me. We found security cameras on trees, hers, hidden trail cams pointed at my house. I hadn't noticed before. They bagged them up. Said they'd be checking for audio surveillance violations too. "Looks like she's been playing sheriff for a while," Jenkins muttered. I thought that was the end of it. Karen got detained. Jenkins filed a report. The surveillance unit got towed not by her, but by an actual government tow service. I figured the feds would slap her with a fine, maybe warn her to stay off my land, and that would be the last I heard of her. But I underestimated how deep Karen's little HOA fantasy ran, and how many people she'd already pulled into her delusion. 3 days after the incident, I came home to find a manila envelope duct taped to my door. It was a cease and desist notice, allegedly from the Blackberry Hollow Property Protection Council. Signed in glitter pen, no return address. Inside were photos, grainy shots of my mailbox, my truck, my dog relieving himself near the road. Handwritten notes in the margins said things like unauthorized canine activity, violation of Article 6B. I stared at it, trying not to laugh, but something twisted in my gut. Because those photos, they weren't taken from the trail cams we'd already found. These were from new angles closer, more invasive. I called Jenkins. "Thought y'all scooped up all the surveillance crap." He sighed. "We did. Maybe we missed one. I'll send a guy." Instead, he sent two along with a young tech named Rena, who brought an RF scanner and a portable drone jammer. She spent 4 hours sweeping my property and found two more cams, one under a branch by my driveway, another tucked into an old birdhouse 30 feet up a pine. "These aren't just hobby cam," Rena said. "They're commercial grade, encrypted SD uplinks, remote on, off. Someone's investing in this. Karen, or someone helping her." Turns out Karen wasn't just harassing me. Over the next week, I started hearing things. Quiet knocks on the door from folks I'd never met, people who lived scattered throughout the hollow, some as far as 5 miles down the road. They all told the same story. Karen, or someone acting on behalf of her council, had fined them, threatened them, photographed them, claimed her HOA had jurisdiction over road maintenance, property lines, even pet ownership. One guy said she tried to have his henhouse condemned for architectural noncompliance. Another had been banned from using his own well because it violated community groundwater preservation policy. None of it was legal, none of it real, but she made it feel real. She posted fake letters on county letterhead, faked phone numbers for HOA attorneys, threatened to call CPS on a single mom because her child drew chalk art on the road. People believed her because she printed things on cardstock and spoke like a school principal. And worst of all, no one stood up to her. Until now, with Rena's help and Jenkins' quiet nod of approval, I started digging. I pulled county records, property filings, zoning maps, you name it. And what I found was a smoking gun wrapped in a whole haystack of fraud. There was no Blackberry Hollow HOA, none, not registered, not chartered, not even on the books. But 5 years back, a shady development firm named Ridgepoint Rural Trust filed documents creating something called a Civic Beautification and Oversight Committee, purely cosmetic, non-binding, volunteer-based. Guess who the only listed officer was? Karen Lynn Crawford. She wasn't enforcing rules, she was inventing them, using them to bully folks, extract dues, and claim power she didn't have. Over 40 households had paid her fees totaling tens of thousands. And she kept every penny. I wasn't going to sit on that. Not after what she pulled. So I went to the one place where rural accountability thrives, the Sunday town hall at the county church. I walked in with a stack of printed emails, photos of the fake notices, and Raina's tech report. Folks were already whispering someone had seen Karen getting detained by the feds. Word had gotten out. "Hey, ain't you the guy with the government truck?" one old-timer asked. "Yep," I said. "And that lady tried to tow it. Damaged a federal unit." Gasps. I stood up front and laid it out, calm, clear, no fluff. I showed them the fake letters, the surveillance cams, the non-existent HOA, the money trail. By the time I finished, you could have heard a pin drop on the church carpet. Then the shouting started. She said we were underwater rationing. She told me I couldn't paint my barn red. My grandson stopped visiting because she said kids weren't allowed after 5 p.m. It wasn't just anger. It was betrayal. These weren't city folks. They were farmers, mechanics, veterans, people who minded their business and expected others to do the same. And Karen had violated that code. The sheriff was there that night, took my packet without a word, nodded once and walked out the back. The next day, Karen's driveway was blocked off with yellow tape. You ever see a house of cards fall in slow motion? That's what it felt like watching Karen's kingdom of lies unravel. But the thing about justice, real justice, is that it doesn't just sweep in all at once like a TV courtroom. No, it's quieter at first. A knock on a door, a bank account frozen, a zoning officer's pen pausing on a forged signature. Then it hits like thunder. And when it finally rolled in over Blackberry Hollow, it didn't just take Karen down, it changed everything. 3 days after the town hall, the county compliance department officially launched an audit. Turns out I wasn't the only one filing complaints. By the end of the week, they had over 60 sworn statements, people who'd paid Karen dues, fines, beautification fees, and, in some cases, thousands of dollars in remodeling permits. And those remodeling permits printed in her basement on an inkjet printer with clip art of a gavel on the header. I wish I were joking. The county assessor's office also confirmed something else. Karen had altered property boundary lines using a fake surveyor stamp. That moved dozens of legal fences, reclaimed green space, and get this, carved out a community vehicle impound zone, which was literally just a dirt patch next to her mailbox. That's where she tried to tow the surveillance van. Jenkins called me 2 weeks into the investigation. His voice was sharp. "You were right. It goes deeper." How deep? Ridgepoint Rural Trust, the folks who filed Karen's beautification paperwork. They're under investigation in 3 counties for land misrepresentation, false easements, and predatory HOA setups. My gut sank. Karen's name shows up as a rural operations coordinator. Her email address was listed as their compliance point of contact for Western Arkansas. Jesus. Yeah. And it gets better. She filed over $150,000 in community fees over 4 years. None of it accounted for. No taxes, no nonprofit paperwork, nothing. So what happens now? She's been summoned. Federal charges pending. You'd think that would have been enough. That maybe Karen would pack up her solar flamingos and disappear into the mist? Nope. She doubled down, posted a 10-minute Facebook video titled HOA Tyranny and the Deep State Agenda, claimed I was a plant, said the surveillance van was proof the government was watching patriots. Her post went viral for all the wrong reasons. The local news picked it up first, then a regional affiliate. Then someone clipped it for TikTok and titled it, "Karen Tries to Tow the Feds, Gets Roasted by Whole County." By the next morning, the clip had 4.2 million views. And the comments savage. This the final boss of HOAs. She really said, "I am the law." She thought the government was parked illegally. Girl, ain't no HOA in the woods. Lady, that's called nature. People started digging into her past. A Reddit thread uncovered old posts from 5 years ago. Karen bragging about reclaiming her neighborhood from urban riffraff. Screenshots surfaced of her finding a disabled veteran for unsightly wheelchair ramp. Then came the mail fraud accusations. And with that, the feds stepped in again. What we didn't know, what none of us had guessed, was that Karen never intended to run an HOA forever. She was building a resume. She'd been planning a run for local council under the slogan, "Restoring Rural Integrity." Her fake HOA is just a test balloon, a sandbox for authoritarianism, a demo reel for suburban tyranny. But what killed her campaign before it started was the footage. Because the feds, see, they never deleted the security footage from the surveillance unit she tampered with. And in that footage, you could see her clearly cutting the lock, lifting the hood, digging through the electronics, laughing, saying, "They think they're so smart with their little government box. I run this place." That footage aired on the evening news like a political death sentence. By the end of the month, her accounts were frozen. Her house, mortgaged under Ridgepoint's name, was seized pending restitution. She was banned from holding office in the county, and she was charged with 2 counts of impersonating a public official, 1 count of interfering with federal operations, and multiple counts of mail fraud. Karen left in a U-Haul, escorted by 2 sheriffs in the bitter taste of her own ambition, and Blackberry Hollow. It exhaled for the first time in years. We held a bonfire that weekend, not the kind with booze and noise, the kind where folks gathered to burn something symbolic. Karen had plastered fake HOA violation signs all over town for years. I brought them all in a wheelbarrow, over 30 of them. We tossed them into the fire one by one. Folks cheered. The woman whose dog got reported. She brought cupcakes. The old man whose fence got moved, he played banjo by the fire. Even Raina showed up. She smiled and sipped some cider and said, "Justice has a nice smell." And it did. There's a sound I'll never forget, like old paper crumpling inside a courtroom microphone. It was the sound of Ridgepoint's CEO taking the stand in front of the Arkansas State Investigative Board and trying to defend their community outreach model. You could hear his voice crack halfway through, right as the Attorney General held up a printout of Karen's fake HOA manual, complete with Comic Sans titles and a misspelled surveillance policy. And then came the line, "I'll never forget." "She was never authorized to create enforcement protocols," the CEO muttered. I leaned forward. "You're saying she went rogue?" the AG asked. "More like, got overzealous. That did it." The room gasped. The press scribbled like their pens were on fire. And I smiled, because that was the nail in the coffin. The last breath of the scam that nearly turned a quiet, rural town into a dictatorship ruled by clipboards and delusion. Turns out Ridgepoint wasn't just shady. They were strategically shady. Their business model was to identify low-regulation rural zones, inject beautification charters under friendly community names, then allow aggressive individuals like Karen to act as localized tyrants. They didn't create HOAs. They created control vacuums and filled them with people desperate for power. The result, towns across Arkansas, Missouri, and Tennessee now in open rebellion, filing lawsuits, tossing out HOA signs, and demanding full transparency in land zoning protocols. I was invited to testify as part of a class action spearheaded by over 80 victims from different counties. Each told a version of the same story: fake fees, unsolicited surveillance, intimidation masked as community standards. Karen was just the face. Ridgepoint was the hand behind the curtain. The county didn't just sit idle. They created a rural oversight and privacy board, first of its kind in the state. And somehow, I got roped into co-chairing it. I just wanted to retire. I told the county clerk, "You parked a surveillance van in front of the HOA mafia." She said, "You're our Batman now." So I stayed. I helped draft new rural zone protections, worked with Raina and a few legal nerds to develop anti-HOA fraud guidelines. Even taught some locals how to spot deepfake legalese in a packet. And you know what I found purpose again? Not behind a badge or a computer, but in a folding chair in a church basement, passing out flyers that said, "Know your rights, no one owns the dirt, but you." She tried one last time, sent an email to the county newsletter editor from a new Gmail account. "The community has lost its moral compass. I was only ever trying to protect it. One day, they'll see I was right." It got printed in the letters to the editor section right next to a coupon for fried pies and a notice about goat yoga on Tuesdays. Nobody replied. Nobody cared. Except me. I clipped it, folded it up, and put it in the back of my kitchen drawer. A reminder that authoritarianism doesn't always come in uniforms and laws. Sometimes it shows up in khakis, a walkie-talkie, and a laminated name badge. If you take one thing away from all this, let it be this: never give your power away to someone just because they sound official. Ask questions, check paperwork, protect your community not just from the loud voices, but from the subtle ones, the ones that fine you for planting sunflowers or claim your mailbox as non-regulation. Because if Karen had succeeded, this whole place would have been carved into tidy little parcels of fear. Instead, we burned the fake signs, pulled up the false maps, and told the world no HOA formed by fraud will ever rule this dirt. What do you think? Was Karen a lone manipulator or a symptom of a bigger problem? Should there be laws protecting rural residents from fake HOAs? What would you have done in my boots? Drop your thoughts below. Share your story. Speak out against injustice, no matter how official it looks on paper. And